Thank you very much, Brenda. All right. Let's call the Water and Sewer Board meeting to order for our monthly meeting, June 10th. We'll start, Brenda, with the roll, if you would call it, please.
Board Member Freeman. Board Member Jolie. Present. Board Member Kelly.
Present.
Board Member Mercier. Board Member Ridley.
Present.
Council Member Russell.
Present.
Council Member Ward. Mayor Sierra. Vice Chair Habernick. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Boreski. My apologies.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present. Thank you.
And
we have a quorum. Go ahead.
At the last council meeting or a couple council meetings ago, City Council decided that Steve Ward would allow Member Wright to take the position on this board.
Okay. Noted.
Thank you.
To add attendance for Council Member Wright.
Present.
Okay, so that's a permanent replacement of Ward with Wright? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Thank you. Very good. All right. Next up is item 3, approval of the minutes from our May 13th meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Get a second.
Second.
Any corrections or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes carried. Motion carries. Next up is a public forum. Brenda, do we have anyone from the public that would wish to address the board?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 5. Item 5A. I'll turn this over to Stephanie Ellis.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Ellis. I'm an engineer with Inglewood Utilities. I have the next few items, so I will try not to talk your ears off. You guys hear me all right? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. This first item is for Xcel Energy City Ditch crossings. There are 4 proposed Xcel Energy gas line crossings of the city ditch. 2 are located near the Woolhurst neighborhood, and these are proposed to be installed in support of the Santa Fe Park development, which we've discussed with Water and Sewer Board before. This is within the city of Littleton, and it is shown on the picture on the left. The photo on the right shows the other 2 proposed gas line crossings. These are in support of the City Ditch piping project, and we actually asked Xcel Energy to relocate these 2 gas lines in order for us to be able to install the City Ditch pipeline in Reach 3, which is in the city of Littleton. With crossings of the City Ditch, there are 2 types of agreements that we require. The first is a crossing agreement, which defines the terms and conditions associated with the crossing. The second is a temporary construction easement, which allows Xcel Energy and their contractor to access our existing City Ditch easement in order to install the new gas lines. For these crossings, Xcel Energy will maintain our required 1.5 feet minimum vertical separation between their new lines and the City Ditch, and they will also notify us prior to construction so that we can inspect the work as needed. Anybody have any questions?
Doesn't sound like it. And yes, Stephanie, there's nothing unique about these particular easements, correct?
No, these are very similar to crossings that you guys have seen in the past.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for item 5A as written?
I move to approve.
Second. Moving on.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. 5B, Stephanie, continue.
Thank you. This item is for City Ditch Reach 3 agreements with the City of Littleton and BNSF. For the City Ditch Piping Project Reach 3, we plan to begin construction this summer. Construction will take place within the City of Littleton. This is near Slaughterhouse Gulch Park area, just south of Bellevue Avenue. Majority of the proposed pipeline will be installed on City of Littleton property, and some of the pipeline will be installed in our existing City Ditch easement on BNSF property. There are several agreements required, both with Littleton and BNSF, and we plan to bring future agreements with Littleton and BNSF to Water Sewer Board and Council following a redesign that we are working on for Reach 2 right now. There are 2 easement agreements that are proposed with the City of Littleton. The first is a temporary construction easement. This would be effective only during construction and grants Inglewood and our contractor access through Littleton property and on Littleton property for construction, and also gives us a large area that we can utilize for staging of equipment and materials. The next agreement is a relinquishment and grant of easements. This relinquishes all of our existing City Ditch easement on Littleton property in Reach 3, and also establishes our new permanent easement for the new proposed pipeline location through this area on Littleton property. Other agreements with the City of Littleton include an intergovernmental agreement. The intergovernmental agreement is effective during construction only. It includes terms for a tree mitigation fee of $216,500, which Inglewood would pay to the City of Littleton because we'll be removing a lot of trees during construction in order to install our new pipeline. City of Littleton also requested that we stabilize the existing City Ditch Bank where we will no longer be using that existing open channel. And this is adjacent to private properties, and the purpose of this is to stabilize the bank and protect those adjacent private properties. Littleton has also requested that we remove the existing overhead flume that conveys water over Slaughterhouse Gulch, and they want us to preserve a section of it that City of Littleton wants to use to commemorate the history of City Ditch. The last agreement with the City of Littleton is a quitclaim deed, which releases all infrastructure and responsibilities to the City of Littleton in this area of the existing City Ditch that we will no longer be using. And this would be effective after construction and after we're utilizing our new pipeline and no longer need the old City Ditch. In order to construct our pipeline that is within BNSF property and also to go through BNSF property to install a pipeline to the north, we are requesting a temporary occupancy permit with BNSF. This will grant us this access that we need for construction. It also includes insurance requirements and several fees, which include a license fee, flagging services, railroad protective liability insurance, and an inspector coordinator. These fees are standard for this type of permit and this type of work. Does anybody have any questions?
Excuse me, Chair, this is Sarah Stone, Deputy Director for Business Solutions and Engineering. I just want to provide a quick comment before we open it for questions. Actually, 2 Tuesdays ago on May 27th, Stephanie gave a similar presentation to the Littleton City Council during their study session, just to review the agreements and get their understanding of the construction that's going to be within the City of Littleton and what each of those agreements meant for the city. So I just want to mention that Littleton is prepared to take these agreements in July to their City Council.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
My question is the part of the ditch that we're giving a quitclaim deed to Littleton for, is that in both Reach 3 and Reach 4?
So Reach 4 is within the City of Inglewood, so we're not giving Littleton anything in that area.
But Reach 3, that's what it involves then,
Yes.
that area?
Yeah, just the area in Reach 3 where there's existing ditch and the overhead flume, that area that we're no longer going to use.
Okay.
So it's just a small area, and it's actually, you can kind of see it on this slide. It's essentially that yellow highlighted area also
Okay.
including the straight area in between those two yellow highlighted areas.
Okay, and they
So-
wanted to maintain that for historical purposes, is that correct?
That is their plan right now. I think they're still discussing with their city council the long-term plans for it, but as of right now, it will be left open channel so that it can commemorate the history of the ditch.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the same overhead flume that is in such bad condition that we'll be discussing later on, correct?
Different overhead flumes. So we actually have several overhead flumes for the city ditch. So there's one in Reach 1 that we'll be discussing later. There's one in Reach 2, but we're not discussing Reach 2 in this meeting. That will be a future meeting as we're working on a redesign for that. Reach 3, this is the overhead flume over Slaughterhouse Gulch Park, and that's the one that Littleton wants us to demolish but give them a piece. And then there's also an overhead flume over Big Dry Creek, just over here in Bellevue Park, and that one will be discussed with the construction contract, which is the next agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
And there has been some discussion about that these flumes are in really bad shape. These flumes are actually in functional shape. And because what we've been balancing is the investment in the flumes knowing that they were going to go away. So we don't want to put too much money into them. However, Littleton did an inspection about a year ago. They did find an area of scour on one of the foundation points where the stream underneath had kind of eroded around the foundation. Once we found that, we immediately fixed that. But as it relates to surface rust and things like that, that's the kind of thing that it would be a significant rehabilitation project. And since we're eliminating these flumes, we didn't want it. We were balancing that, like keeping it going, realizing that ultimately it's going to be in a ditch. So they function, they serve the purpose. There's no imminent issue with them, but they are old and they're deteriorating.
Yeah, stick a Band-Aid on it until we get buried. So. Thanks.
Any further questions? Okay, can I get a motion for item 5B as written?
I move to
So moved.
approve.
All right, go ahead.
I'll do the second this time.
Okay, so moved by Travis.
And Councilmember Russell, you have the second, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. 5C.
This next item is for the city ditch piping project construction, reaches 3 and 4. As we've discussed with Water Sewer Board before, we are working on the city ditch piping project where our goal is to have a completely piped city ditch between Chatfield Reservoir and the Allen Water Treatment Plant. Through this project and piping open channel sections, the ultimate goal is to improve the taste, odor, and hardness of our water. Other improvements include sustainability, resiliency, and safety for the ditch, and an overall reduced capital investment for the utility by piping city ditch and bringing in better raw water quality from Chatfield Reservoir rather than taking as much water from our Union Avenue pump station in the South Platte River. Jacobs has been performing the engineering design for this project over the past few years, and they completed the design for reaches 3 and 4 early this year. Soon after that, in February of this year, we released an RFP to bring in a contractor for reaches 3 and 4 construction. And Reach 2, as I mentioned, is currently under redesign. The reason for that is the BNSF declined to give us a permanent easement for our initial proposed pipeline alignment through Reach 2, and so we're working on redesigning that section so that we'll put the pipe in a different spot or in our existing easement. We are also bringing to you as our next item a contract for Reach 1 improvements, and you can see those 4 reaches shown here. The focus of this construction contract is reaches 3 and 4, which are shown here. We just discussed Reach 3 in the city of Littleton, Slaughterhouse Gulch Park area, and also through the Littleton Maintenance Yard. Reach 4 is in the city of Inglewood in Bellevue Park area. The dark green line is the proposed pipeline location. The red line is existing pipes locations of the city ditch, and the blue lines are existing open channel sections of the city ditch. The scope of work under this construction contract includes the piping for reaches 3 and 4. It also includes several supplemental items. These include cleaning existing pipe sections of the city ditch that have significant debris and sediment buildup, adding access manholes to another section of the city ditch where right now we're not able to inspect that section of the ditch because we're not able to access it. There's not enough manholes and we can't send a camera through. We also want to include in this construction contract structural improvements to the flume that goes over Big Dry Creek through Bellevue, also in Bellevue Park, Reach 4. Those structural improvements came out of a structural evaluation that was completed by Jacobs. Through this project, we will also be eliminating a stormwater inlet that currently conveys stormwater into the city ditch very close to the Allen Water Treatment Plant. So this will improve that water that we're bringing to our water treatment plant. And by rerouting that stormwater, we'll also be reinforcing an existing stormwater channel to ensure it can take those additional flows. Per City of Littleton's request, we are also including the Slaughterhouse Gulch area slope stabilization and the Slaughterhouse Gulch flume demolition as we just discussed. We received 5 proposals from our RFP, and you can see those prices and contractors listed here. Hudic Excavating Inc., or HEI, had the lowest base price and also the lowest price on those supplemental services. For this project, we were originally proposing to execute it with a construction manager general contractor, and that was Reynolds Construction. We were working with them through the design phase and initially planned to move forward into construction with them. We received their final pricing for reaches 3 and 4, which we didn't believe were competitive with the market, and you can see their prices listed here compared to HEI and their prices from their proposal. If you look at the total contract or total proposed contract price from both contractors, HEI is about $4.6 million lower than Reynolds was, and we're getting a lot more out of that contract. So Reynolds' price was for a 48-inch pipe, which is actually smaller than what we want to do for this project. We had reduced the pipe size when we were working with Reynolds in order to save costs on the project. However, one of the supplemental items that we included in our RFP was a 60-inch pipe or 60-inch pipe equivalent, which is the ideal pipe size to convey the flows that we want to through this new piped city ditch. We're able to include that in the proposed contract with HEI for significantly less than Reynolds, and their price also includes supplemental services. We are recommending a construction contract for reaches 3 and 4 with HEI. They were the lowest price in all of the proposals. They also have very relevant experience and a lot of project experience. They provided the best project approach and also have the preferred schedule for this project. The selection committee unanimously agreed that HEI would be the best contractor for this work. We're proposing a contract amount of $6,106,861. You may notice this number is slightly higher than the proposed amount on the previous slide, and that is because this number includes the Slaughterhouse Gulch flume demolition. That was not included in our original RFP, but City of Littleton came to us after and requested that we include that in our work. We're also proposing a 10% staff managed contingency for a total project authorization of $6,717,547.
And Chair, if I might, I just wanted to add a few things on this. So this has been a long time getting to this point where we're now under construction. And I want to thank Stephanie for her persistence in all the agreements and working with all the different stakeholders to get us here and to get us to this point where we're actually moving forward with 2 significant reaches under construction. And the next contract that we'll talk about is finishing some work on the 3rd reach. It leaves us with 1 reach left. And like she said before, that's because of the railroad that we're working through. And this is one of those situations where the taking of time actually gives us the best value. So we were moving forward with a contractor for 2+ years that we were intending to construct this with. And as we continue to try to get their pricing in with what we thought was appropriate with the market, we just kept hitting a point where we hit a wall. And so in collaborative delivery or alternative delivery such as CMGC, you have to know when is the right time to say the value's not there and it's worth the time delay to go out to the market and see where the pricing comes in. And this is one of those situations. So by taking the time delay to bid this out and bid it to the market, we ended up saving $4.7 million, which was where we thought it was more reasonably coming in line from our estimates perspective. So as we were moving through this process over the past few years, it's put pressure on our capital plans because the numbers were so significantly higher that we were making decisions on our capital plans. And one of the things that I talk to the team and contractors about when we're working in these alternative delivery methods like CMGC is if you give us bad numbers, we make bad decisions. And so as we have pricing that is too high, and we know it's too high, and our intel from the bids in the community show that it's too high, we end up cutting the size of the pipe and cutting the project down and moving other projects in our capital plan because now our capital budget isn't sufficient compared to where we thought it was. Well, with this pricing bid out like this, we actually fall into our original cost estimates from 2021 for this project, which helps stabilize the mountain graph that we're going to talk about later, the financing graph. But it really speaks to the importance of Stephanie and Sarah and the team staying engaged with the contractor and pushing and pushing and pushing, and then ultimately deciding that this isn't the right value for us because we're going to get a good project, good construction, and yes, there might be some change orders for some things that are missed here and there, but they're not going to, we anticipate that they're not going to exceed $4.7 million. And so by taking this approach, we really have worked to create the best value for the city. This will also potentially result in a change to our approach with the Big Dry Creek flume. Right now, there's a structural component to keeping that flume and improving its structural stability. But if our budgeting comes in back in line where we thought it should be, then what the ultimate goal is that we put that underground and we tunnel under Big Dry Creek and we have a fully piped system. So we might make that change as we find out what happens with Reach 2 and the pricing that comes back on that. And so I wanted to reiterate that it has taken time to get here, but the reason it's taken time is because we were trying to drive to the best value for the city. And we think with this construction approach and this contractor, we've gotten there. And so I want to thank Stephanie and Sarah for their persistence on this over the past, and Cliff Stevens as well, over the past 3 years. So thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. So currently, before we were enclosing the ditch, did it just flow by gravity? There weren't pumps pushing water through the ditch, right?
That's correct, and it will still flow by gravity even when it's piped. And so that's one of the reasons this project is beneficial, is because we can save electricity this way too when we're gravity flowing the ditch, rather than when we take water from the South Platte River, we do have to pump it.
Okay, and so is that the reason for the flumes, because to keep it more level or coming downhill, or?
The flumes actually are used to convey water over other streams. And so those include, so Big Dry Creek over here in Bellevue Park is the one we're discussing for Reach 4. And the ditch needs to flow across Big Dry Creek somewhere. And so the flume was originally installed, and we believe these are from the 1940s time frame. And so they were installed in order to convey that water over the existing streams.
Yeah, essentially the flume is maintaining elevation so that the ditch stays just slightly less than flat, so it's got a slight downhill grade to it. And what we can do with pipes is you can do what are called siphons. And so you keep the gravity flow, and as it goes under and then under Big Dry Creek, for example, and comes back the other side, that pressure of going down and coming up is what allows it to convey because it's in a pipe system. But flumes, since they're open channel, have to maintain that grade, which is why they're elevated.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a question.
Oh, please go ahead.
Once it gets through that flume, I live right at Bellevue Park. There's an open section there along the west side of the Allen treatment plant. And I know you're going to do something there, but what are you going to do with that ditch that's there?
Yeah, so I just brought the slides back so that you can see the proposed location for Reach 4. So I believe you're
Right.
talking about the location. Are you talking just to the east or the right side of the reservoir there, just south of Layton? Is that where you're referring to?
Yeah, and it's that open ditch is right there along the backside of a lot of people's property. So I was just curious because they've asked me and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to answer.
No, that's a good question. So we do plan to pipe that section of ditch. However, that is also where that existing stormwater inlet goes into the ditch. And so we'll be piping that area, but we're going to be trying to hug as close to that reservoir or as close to our reservoir as we can so that we leave room to leave some of that existing channel open to convey some of the stormwater up to Layton Avenue. And so the existing city ditch as it flows now is not going to continue. However, there will still be some channel there, at least in the short term, to convey the stormwater.
Yeah, and I think the goal on this is so from a stormwater perspective, as stormwater flows into irrigation ditches, from a design perspective, you have to assume that the ditch doesn't exist because what you're assuming is the ditch is full and so it can't accommodate more water. What we're doing is we're putting that pipe in, but we're going to leave the ditch there such that it can still convey the stormwater away. We don't want to make things worse. We think we'll make them slightly better. There's a larger stormwater challenge in that area that has been there for years and years and years. Our goal is to make it incrementally better, but not necessarily address the full stormwater challenges there as part of this project. The other piece that I've talked to at least one of the neighbors in that area is there's that informal trail that runs along the fence.
Right.
So that's essentially where the pipe is going to go, is where that informal trail is. And then we're going to move our fence such that the pipe is within our fenced area. And so that informal trail will actually end up going away. And it's also a security risk from a when you look at security of the Allen plant, it's right up against the fence. And so we've heard from the neighbors that back up there that they don't all necessarily like having everybody walking back and forth and people take dirt bikes up and down it. And so we'll be eliminating that north-south informal connection as part of this, but incrementally improving the stormwater, improving the security of the Allen plant, and then piping the ditch through here. So that's what's coming for that reach.
I also want to note that we did send a letter out a few months ago to the residents that live in this area so that they know that the ditch is going to be piped here. And we plan to offer an open house meeting to those same residents as well prior to construction so that they know what's going on.
Great. Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion for item 5C as written?
Motion.
So moved. Second.
Wonderful. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 5D.
Okay, last one you'll hear from me on. So this is for our City Ditch Reach 1 improvements. City Ditch Reach 1 is located in the city of Littleton, southwest of Santa Fe and Mineral. Majority of the ditch in this area has already been piped by developers, but there's a few remaining open channel sections. That includes a 4-bay area that's adjacent to our McClellan pump station, an overhead flume that conveys water over Dad Clark Gulch, an abandoned partial flume that we no longer use for measurement, but we do use to convey water through, and a box channel that was installed by one of the developers, but the top of that box channel is an open grate and isn't fully enclosed. In addition, we completed a structural evaluation on the overhead flume over Dad Clark Gulch in this area, and there are also several structural improvements that are necessary on it. This work will be located, as I mentioned, within the city of Littleton. It's adjacent to our McClellan pump station. From the picture on the right, you can see on the bottom is our pump station. Just next to that, on the top right corner of our pump station, you can see that 4-bay area. And the straight area is that overhead flume. And then the curved area is that box channel that has the grate on top. The proposed scope of work for this contract includes a spray and liner for the flume, which will eliminate an existing leak from the flume. So we are currently experiencing water loss through that. Also structural improvements as identified through that structural evaluation that was completed, and enclosing all remaining open channel sections of Reach 1, which will complete and enclose Reach 1. When coordinating with Reynolds Construction earlier on in this project, we also received a quote from them for work on Reach 1. That was approximately $400,000 and did not include the structural repairs as we hadn't completed that structural evaluation yet at that time. We are proposing a contract with QP Services for this work, and including the structural repairs, that's about $230,000. QP Services is a pre-qualified contractor with the city. We have other existing contracts with QP Services, and they've completed quality work for us. They also have the specialized expertise needed for this type of work in Reach 1. I think that's one of the main reasons that their cost is significantly lower than Reynolds Construction. I believe Reynolds Construction was going to subcontract out a lot of this work to a more specialized firm like QP Services. That's why they were significantly lower. We're proposing a contract amount for $229,880, a 10% staff managed contingency for a total project authorization of $252,868.
Any questions? All right. Can I get a motion for item 5D as written?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
There we go. Starting to worry. All right, any further discussion? All right, please, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, opposed. All right, motion carries. And Stephanie, thank you for your performance tonight. We'll move on to Adam.
Thank you.
Good evening, Water Sewer Board. Stephanie's going to be a tough act to follow. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little nervous. This item is, my name is Adam Marquez, Utilities Engineering Supervisor. This item is the Solids Handling Improvements Project, GMP3 for construction services. So this being GMP3 of an existing CMGC agreement, CMGC 25-30. GMPs 1 and 2 are already executed and currently under construction. We're expecting completion of those GMPs in Q3 of this year. So tonight we're adding GMP3 for the manual transfer switch project, looking to add it.
What is a GMP3? I'm sorry.
It's a guaranteed maximum price contract. The purpose of this GMP is to address new power demands at the Allen Water Treatment Plant, the Solids Handling Improvements Project, as well as the Office Improvements Project at the Allen Plant will increase the overall power demands at the plant. The new manual transfer switch will allow for a backup generator connection. This will allow for shorter downtimes during power outages or maintenance, and allow us to basically add a supplemental generator if necessary. It will also improve the safety during maintenance. And we actually recently completed a construction project which would have been much simpler had we had a manual transfer switch. So the timeline for this project, the switchgear has about a 15-month lead time. So if the board recommends for approval tonight, we would be on track for July procurement. The equipment would arrive in October of next year, and we would begin installation and construction and complete by the end of 2026. Scope of work includes the furnish and installation of the new transfer switch, installing new concrete reinforced pad as a base, installing new underground electrical conduit and duct bank, tying into the existing switchgear building, which is the larger white building on the right. We will supply a roll-up generator during construction to support the project, and startup and commissioning. So here's a breakdown of the costs, with the total cost being $666,508. So our recommendation is approval of a modification to add GMP3 to the existing CMGC agreement. $666,508 plus a 5% staff managed contingency for a total project authorization of $699,833. Questions?
And Chair, if I may, so this is a contract where we are still continuing to use CMGC. So that's the other contracting methodology. And that is one where we work with the contractor through design. We select them based on their qualifications. We work with them through design. We work through with an owner's advisor to help ensure that the pricing that we're getting is market competitive. And then we work through a process of what are called GMPs, guaranteed maximum price. One of the reasons we do this way is because there are long lead items, there's phasing, that if you're doing a design bid build project, you wait all the way until the point where you've got everything done, you issue it for bid, and then you start the process of procuring everything. This allows us through GMP1 and GMP2 to do some of that work incrementally as we move forward. So I just wanted to illustrate to the board that we use these different contracting methodologies based on what we think is driving the best value for the city as a whole, and we ensure that the pricing that we receive, whether it be from a hard bid to the street or through a GMP process utilizing an owner's advisor to verify the pricing, is how we ensure that we get that best value.
So my is
I'll
this?
ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I can't see the voice. Is this switch on the generator, so if some work has to be done, you have to shut down, you could use this switch and it's easy shut down, start up, if I understand correctly?
Exactly. So it's connected to the generator, and it kind of sits physically between our generator and our main switchgear. And yeah, it's essentially like the disconnect in your house. You pull a big lever. It's just much larger and has a lot more power capacity, but it allows you to easily switch over that power source to a different generator.
Okay, so you would just have one generator, or is there two generators that you're switching
So
from?
for planned activities, we would bring in a rental generator to do the switch over. So we could basically just easily plug in a rental generator to switch over to.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
I'll slide in a question. You normally ask for a 10% contingency. This one was just 5. I'm just curious the difference.
So we wanted to, the 5% was to kind of keep it within our overall budget expectations. And we think that it's a relatively lower risk project. The contract also includes an allowance for price escalation. So that was already accounted for.
Yeah, I think in this instance, it's the scope and the opportunity for variability is lower. So we just went with a lower contingency because we wanted to match the contingency for the potential changes that could arise during construction. So typically you see 10% because there's more possibility for change. In this instance, we went with 5 because we think it's pretty dialed in and tight, and with the guaranteed maximum price, we think we have the cost pretty well set.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions?
I have one more, please.
Okay.
And I'm looking at this timeline, and we're looking at 1.5 years until complete. So would we be locked into the price with the contract if council approves then?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
All right. Could I get a motion for item 5E as written? Come on, crew.
Motion. I'll
All
throw
right.
in my
Linda,
hat.
did you get that one?
Second, Councilmember Wright
Okay.
was the.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank
Adam.
you.
We have nothing under old business. We'll move it to staff's choice. Peter, I assume we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Tonight, myself and Director Victor Rochelle will be going through the proposed 2026 budget for the water, sewer, and stormwater enterprise funds. And so we'll run through those like we do annually and provide an opportunity for feedback from the board as we move this through the council process. So thank you. So we'll get rolling on this. So I think we've covered this. This is what we're going to cover. 2024, we're going to look at the funds return to balance. And so that tells us how well we're spending to budget, and then what our 2026 proposal is. And then we're in 2025 right now. We're going to do that for all 3. As we've talked many times before, the water fund serves about 34,000 residents and 2,100 businesses. You can see the service area there. It extends beyond the city of Englewood. We've got some extraterritorial. There's some information. So we have the Allen plant. We have some pump stations. We have a lot of pipes and valves and things like that. We essentially provide drinking water services and wastewater collection, and that's what we're covering today. And on the sewer fund, as you all know, that South Platte Renew, the proportionate share that is Englewood's responsibility of South Platte Renew comes through the sewer enterprise fund. So overall, our strategy, this is what we've gone through over the past few years, is modernization of the utility. So that reinvestment, fixing things. I think when you look back at what Stephanie and Adam have talked about earlier today, there's a lot of investment. So we're at the point of, we conceptually came up with the problems, and then we've done the designs, and now we're actually in the construction phase. And there's a lot of these improvements. And if you really just look over the last 2 years of this board, there's a lot of construction and investment that's occurring. So that's that modernization aspect. And then with that, modernization comes a focus on improving what is ultimately the customer experience, and most important is taste, odor, and hardness, which we continue to make incremental improvements on, and we are continue to see better and better feedback. We are not there yet, but these projects like enclosing City Ditch, which we made a huge step forward today, and when we go to council, helps us get there. And so that's really our two main strategic approach priorities. Organizationally, we essentially have 63 FTEs. You can see how they break down. There's 8.5 in engineering. There's 12.5 in business solutions and 42 in operations and maintenance. I split my time 50% as the director of the utility and 50% as the director of South Platte Renew. Sarah and I also share the responsibility of leading the Englewood McClellan Reservoir Foundation Board. That's a function of the Director of Utilities, and so we do work to work with that property and establish those long-term leases to provide revenue to the general fund for the city of Englewood. You see, generally, our strategic plan connection is to infrastructure and transportation, safety because of safe drinking water, sustainability, community well-being because it is water, and then overall governance from making sure that we have long-term financial plans and long-term financial strategy that is sustainable for our community. The water and sewer utility focus is taste, odor, and hardness. Lead service lines are, I think you've all seen that the lead service lines are being replaced at a rapid clip right now, and we're about a year into that project, and we just crossed over the 1,000 service line replaced threshold. We anticipate that we have somewhere around 2,800, so we're given their production rate, we're thinking maybe as soon as 18 months we'll be complete, and that issue for our system will be gone. If you're calling 2020, we knew we had the issue, we had no way to fund it, and to be here 5 years later and potentially having that completely resolved in our system is important. Some of the major program updates besides lead reduction in City Ditch, which we've talked about, and then one of the most important resiliency projects that we have that will go to construction this fall is the Denver Water Interconnects, and that provides us that backup resiliency that has not been there for a few decades. So we'll get into water fund. So the total budget request for the water fund, so you can see from 2025, the operations request is just over 17 million. We go down slightly. We're at 16 million, so we're down at, by about 1.2 million. The capital, again, continues to go down a little bit. So overall, we move from 53 million down to 51 million, which is about a 5% decrease. Now, a lot of that, what you'll see is these numbers. We're at that. When we get to what we call the mountain graph, you'll see that we're in that peak of that investment, and that investment, a lot of that comes from that debt that we issued through WIFIA and the state revolving fund. And so we're infusing that money into the systems. We're improving the systems with these projects, and ultimately you'll see these total budgets come down substantially because those capital numbers will come down. So in 2024, you can see generally how we did, and I'll go to the summary on this. So this is funds that we had originally anticipated in the budget was 47.5 million. We spent about 32.5 million, which means that 15 million of it went back to the water fund. So it doesn't go anywhere else. It's not lost. It just goes back to the fund balance of the water fund, or we don't pull as much debt. And all that, what that really does is it just pushes out the timing of the execution of the projects that we have allocated for those funding mechanisms. So each year that we come here, we get better and better at that complete execution and of the total budget. And really, what's lagging is that capital execution. For the city, just is a great example of this. It's taking us longer to get to the point of construction because we've been working through trying to get the best value, and the time to spend in getting best value is during the design and bidding process, not while we're in active construction. In 2026, we are proposing to. You can see there's a slight increase in personnel. There's commodities. There's a commodities increase, which is generally around chemicals and things like that. We're reducing our reliance on professional services in 2025 to 26. That's because we're, again, more in that execution phase. So we're away from studies, more into construction. Capital goes down a little bit. That's because we're the timing of what we're actually executing. And then debt service goes down because the original estimate on the debt service was assuming a higher debt payment from the drinking water revolving fund annually. And so we had a very conservative number in there, and that's why you see 2.7 in 2025. Well, we've now got it settled in as to what the actual debt service is, and so it comes in at about 1.6. The red on this is the changes from what you saw in April, and essentially these projects have generally stayed the same. It's really just the timing of the execution, and then the total amount fitting into the capital plan as we've defined it in our financial models and in our master plan. So you can see we're still working on space improvement, and these are all WIFIA funded projects. So these are projects that utilize that WIFIA debt, which is low interest money that we received in 2022. So you can see that investment in the Allen Water Treatment Plant, plant systems, and then the pump stations, and then ultimately solids handling will be finishing out. That's the project that we just brought to the council. Just received the centrifuge just 2 weeks ago, and so that's being installed right now, and we're awaiting delivery of the dredge. That'll complete that project out. And so you can see the total WIFIA for 2026 is about 9.6 million. And then it continues. We have through 2029 to spend the WIFIA money, which is actually really good, because if you remember on WIFIA, if we don't draw it, we don't pay interest on it. So if we can delay the draw as long as possible until the last minute that we need it, that's when we start accruing interest. So it's really great from a funding mechanism perspective, different than what you get out of general obligation bonds or revenue bonds or even the state revolving fund. It's what makes WIFIA unique and really beneficial as we're taking time over the course of 6 years to execute the projects. You can see that we have a continued ongoing investment in the annual valve replacement that picks back up in 2029. You've seen that we have invested in a lot of valves. We've installed a lot of replacement valves and insertion valves, which gives us a whole lot more control over our system, which is, I think over the last few years, we've installed or repaired or installed insertion valves of, I think, a total of over 200. And that has given us a lot more control so that when there is a break, we can limit the outage and we can actually better control the system. You can see from a water supply perspective, City Ditch is our main project. That's pushing out into 2026. And then Meadow Creek improvements, that's the improvements that when Denver Water, they manage our system in the mountains. And when they need funding from us to make improvements up there, they let us know, and then we budget for it. That's about $395,000. So these are the funds that are not debt related, that are more out of the fund balance cash, and so these are not subject to federal loan requirements, things like that. So our subtotal for capital projects is about 22 million. 5-year total is about 48 million. And what you can see is that we're still in that. We're in that high execution period right now. And then when we get out to 28 or 29, 30, this is where we stabilize at that 4 to 5 million a year. And as I've talked before, that's where when we get to about 2031, if we want to continue to reinvest at a rate of about 4 or 5 million a year, which prevents us from getting into the same situation again that we're in, where there's deferred maintenance, deferred investment, that's when we need to fix that structural financial investment. But we have 6 years to do it. So we're still continuing to work to solve that problem. But we know it's there, and we know it's something that we need to look at long-term to make us a long-term viable utility. But we have time to do it. It's not an emergency. So you can see the last piece of this is the lead program, which will be funding in through 2026. And ideally, by the end of 2026, we are done with the lead program. And total capital investment over the 5 years is about $58 million. There's no enhancements scheduled for or anticipated for the water fund in 2026. So basically, everything is what we've already outlined in plan and in master plans, and staffing levels are where we think they should be. Our revenue, we continue to stick to the financial model, which calls for a 4.5% increase per year. We talked to the board about this last month when we went through in detail the financial models and how these numbers all interact to ensure that we're executing the appropriate amount of investment and ongoing operation and maintenance while not creating rate shock. So what does 4.5% mean to the typical user? Basically, to the typical user, it means about $1.08 per month of an increase to their water bill. And that's for a typical user in the city of Englewood. Our connection fees follow the ENR Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index. This is again part of our financial models in terms of how we make sure that we're keeping up with connection fees. And so our projected annual revenue is about $38,000. That's from new connections onto the system. Capital investment fee stays flat this year. If you recall, that goes up by $1 every other year in our model. And so this is one of those years that it doesn't go up. And then the drinking water loan fee, which was approved last year, will be implemented late this year. That one stays flat at $5 through the life of the fee, which is essentially 30 years. So that one is not anticipated to increase beyond $5 at any point in the future. So this is the mountain graph that I've talked about. It talks about where we were from historic underinvestment and how we got here in that planning phase. We are in that middle part of this graph right now where we are executing a tremendous amount of investment. That's why you're seeing upwards of $50 million a year for the budget, $30 million in capital a year. And as we start to hit that declining limb of the graph near about 2027, that's when we'll start to stabilize. Those two pink areas, this is one of the most important things about that, taking that approach with City Ditch. By saving that $4.7 million, we end up closing part of that funding gap. We don't close the whole gap, but we close part of it. It's not the total 4.7, but it closes a portion of that. Additionally, with the drinking water, the lead program coming in at about $2,800, we believe that'll result in a total project cost of about $30 million. Our drinking water revolving fund is for $40 million. So that other $10 million closes that funding gap in the pink that you see there. So when we look at it, it's about an $18 million funding gap over the next 5 years that we have largely closed between that work with the City Ditch project and the drinking water revolving fund. So we think we still have somewhere around a $3 to $4 million of funding gap over the next few years to close, and we're confident that we can match the project work and the timing of that project work to really close that such that it fits with the financial models. And so to be here a year plus later from when we put this strategic analysis together on this, to have that funding gap closed is really it makes us more relaxed as it relates to when we're looking at the funding on this, and it makes it more sustainable. The blue area is where we then determine what's the long-term ongoing investment, and where we have 6+ years to figure that out to get there. So it's not, right now we're in good shape, and there's nothing imminent because of the models. How does that translate to bills? So our customer bills. So if you use 6,000 gallons, these are all the comparison entities that we looked at. If you're using 6,000 gallons, we're almost the lowest. We're not the lowest. The average, and this is water, sewer, stormwater, is about $130 when you look across the city. And these are typical metro area. This is what you'd see if you use 6,000 gallons in those other entities. So we want to provide a broad comparison. If you use if you use less water, it becomes a little bit more. We move a little bit farther up, but we're still in that lower end, and we're still well under the average. If you use a lot of water, we become the cheapest of the entities. So this is something that is involved with our rate structure that we need to fix, which is that declining block rate structure, which we anticipate addressing in a couple of years. We want to give our customers a bit of a break from changing all the rates based on the last year and some of the work that we've had a challenge with. But you can see generally, as we look at this from a comparison to the rest of the metro area, we are at the bottom end, and we still remain highly affordable for water, sewer, and storm services. And this is the new information proposed based on the proposed rate increases that we're proposing tonight. So that is it for the water fund. Any questions on the water fund?
Do we intend to spend all of the WIFIA money?
Right now, our intention is to spend all the WIFIA. Yes, it is to intend that. We are intending to spend that. The benefit we have is we have more time to spend that money. The interest rate on the water fund, I believe, is 2.95%. So it's a really good interest rate. Like I said, it sits out there right now, and if we don't draw it until 2028, we're not paying interest, and it's got a 35-year payback. And so it's a really good funding mechanism.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
On this rate survey, does this include all the fees for everybody, or is it just the rates?
So this is what we anticipate this is the total payment for water services for a typical residential customer. And so what it includes, and you'll see in some of these, is some of them have, you can see where it says mill levy. So some of the districts, their monthly bill is lower, but they pay an annual tax on their property tax that funds the utility. And so what we've done, and this is where you've seen this evolve over the past few years that we've been providing this comparison, is we've really gone out to research to try and get it as apples to apples as possible, realizing that water districts and water providers don't necessarily follow the same boundaries as municipal boundaries. And so this is our best approximation, utilizing the information that's available on the district websites, the municipal websites, and their rates according to usage that also includes that mill levy. And you can see that there's a variability as it relates to stormwater. So some entities you see have a significant stormwater fund. Others, there might be a stormwater component, but we haven't found how that stormwater shows up. So if you don't see a stormwater component, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't pay for a stormwater component. It's just we haven't been able to fully determine how an individual in that district area pays for stormwater. It's not to say that it doesn't exist. If anything, it just bumps their costs up more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, shall I keep going, Chair?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go through the sewer fund. Same approach. So sewer fund has the amended budget of 30 million in 2025. 2026 budget request is 27 million. It's a decrease of about 8%. And a lot of that has to generally generally has to do with some changes in operations. But overall, it stays. What? Oh, I'm sorry. And the most important piece, thank you. The most important piece is that star, which is the debt service. And so Sarah just found out what, last week? So last week we found out, so we have a loan from the original, as the City of Englewood has a loan for the investments at South Platte Renew that occurred back in 2004, 5, 6 general time frame that was scheduled to be paid off in 2028, I believe. And the state revolving fund, the Power and Development Authority, refinanced those loans back in 2012, I believe. And so they received a reduction in that. And so they are passing on the reduction due to that refinancing to all of us. So while for the next 3 years, we were anticipating still paying debt service to close out those loans in 2028, it's been refunded and paid off. And so those loans are now paid off early to the tune of $4 million. So last week we found out that we got a $4 million credit back on those loans from the Power and Development Authority. So it's kind of some good news.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
If we receive that $4 million back, does that enable us to give the citizens a break on the sewer part of it, or no?
So we haven't evaluated that. I think the challenge is yes, this is a $4 million reduction, but as we've talked about before, 5 years from now, the sewer fund capital need moves from about 16 to 17 million a year to $32 million a year. So while there could be some kind of a short-term benefit to this, I think the biggest thing is the debt service payment goes away. I think if we do anything that takes us off that long-term 20-year trajectory of these larger investments down the road, it'll somewhat set us backwards. And so we haven't evaluated it, but it may be something that allows us to push out the timing of some other what's that? Some other debt issuances, because we do have debt on the through WIFIA for the sewer fund as well. And so what this does is this takes $4 million that we would have normally issued debt, paid interest on, and allowed us to push that out. And we can push that out to 2029. So we haven't necessarily evaluated that. It's good news in terms of financial stability of the sewer fund. If you recall, when I got here, the sewer fund was in trouble, and now it's really stable. And with that debt mechanism and this unforeseen payoff of debt, it just helps us from a position perspective. So I'm not sure, unless we can look at it, but I'm not sure that the long-term benefit, knowing what we have down the road, is something that would ultimately benefit our customers.
Okay, keep that in mind, though.
We will.
All right, thank you.
We definitely will. Okay, so as we move forward on the sewer fund, you can see generally everything is pretty stable in terms of where we execute. Actually, on SPR in South Platte Renew this year, I think we hit a 97% execution of our budget, which we try to get to 95 because that says we're budgeting well. But as soon as we get over 95 and we get to 100%, between 95 and 100, we start to get nervous because we don't want some unforeseen cost to come through where we're exceeding the appropriation. So about as good and comfortable as we can get is about 97%. And so I think, when you look at the bulk of the execution of the sewer fund is through SPR, that's why you see things coming in so closely. 2026 budget proposal, you can see the amended budget. The reason the amended budget in 2025 went up was because we were finishing out some construction. So this is largely related to construction timing. And then as you move into 2026, you can see the numbers do go down a bit. and a lot that is largely associated with that debt service reduction. And so you can see how it, so net goes up by an appropriate amount, but you have this one-time reduction that is that 4 million, which is good news. So the main thing from a sewer fund perspective is the investment in the South Platte Renew Capital. These are updated numbers based on the new master plan that South Platte Renew completed late last year. And if you look at 26, 27, 28, 29, those are generally half. So Englewood funds half of the capital. And so that's half of 17, 18 million. And then you get to 2030, and that's when some significant capital needs hit us, and it jumps to 36 million. And so that's where we, from our financial models perspective, we know that we'll be issuing more debt in the future, but the fund is actually in good shape to be able to handle the next several years and then be able to infuse that debt when those new capital needs arise. And that takes us out a good 10 years. So we've got a good model on that as well. No enhancements. We think, again, from a staffing perspective, we're good. Revenue, you can see on the revenue side, same thing, the rates, generally about $1.08, $1.10 in terms of cost, typical increase per month. What it does from a projected revenue perspective. You can also remember that this is not just the people inside the city. This is the inside the city and all the connector districts, which come through the connector agreements with the city of Englewood. So the numbers look really big from the sewers fund perspective, but a way to generally right size that to direct city of Englewood customers, citizens and customers, is to multiply that number by about 11 or 12%. So even though the projected revenue is about $1 million, it's generally probably about 110,000 to 120,000 from city of Englewood. So the numbers do look big because with the agreements, we're serving upwards of 160,000 people, not 34. Questions or comments on the sewer fund?
Keep rolling.
Okay. South Platte Renew, we'll run through that quickly. We'll go into this in much more detail for, we do this annually with the two councils at our joint council meeting that's in August. Anybody from the board is welcome to attend that as well. So quickly, South Platte Renew, regional entity administered by City of Englewood. It's a joint venture between Littleton and Englewood, 108 square miles, 300,000 customers, 19 connector districts that come through Englewood and Littleton. So on this graphic, Englewood is green, Littleton is that orangish red in the middle, and then all the other colors are connector districts. So that's the SPR service area. Strategic plan. These are the 5 areas of our strategic plan: proactive long-range planning and infrastructure reinvestment, fiscal responsibility and transparency, innovation and partnerships, focus on safety, which is our SPR SAFE program, since we are a complex, dangerous industrial environment, and ultimately the employee experience. We want to attract and retain the best talent in the metro area, and by focusing on the employee experience, we feel like we're doing a good job on that. Total budgets, operations is about, in 2025 was 23 million. In 2026 is just over 23 million. We go up about 350,000. It's actually, I think, only about a 1% increase. And so that's because of just refinement of how we're executing our work and keeping that operations dialed in. Usually capital also goes up by about $1 million. So the total increase of the budget is from about 39.5 to about 41.6. These are the projects. If you'd like me at some point in time to go into great detail about all the complexities of these projects, please let me know. This is predominantly process related improvements that are part of the master plan. And you can see there's chemical, biological, mechanical, electrical systems in all of these projects. And I think the key is to look at the subtotal and then ultimately look at the total at the end. So that's the total capital program split 50-50 between the two cities, which maintains that 50-50 ownership. And that is it for South Platte Renew. So I'll leave it to any questions before I turn it over to Victor for the Stormwater Fund. Okay, we'll keep rolling.
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everybody. Victor Rochelle, Director of Public Works. So we'll run through the Stormwater Fund. We'll do a quick department overview, funds return to balance, budget proposal, and then certainly open it up for questions. Overview, our mission, and some photos here from last year, some of the work we did to make sure that we're promoting that high quality of life, economic vitality, unique, desirable community. Stormwater and infrastructure is key to that. Some of the photos you got there, we were cleaning the northwest green belt on the left-hand side. The kind of middle-ish picture is the southeast green belt, and then as part of our MS4 permit, tagging our drains to make sure people understand that things that go in the storm drain actually go to the South Platte and have an impact on our aquatic life and downstream. Our structure for stormwater, so we have 7.25 FTEs paid out of that. That includes our entire stormwater team and then fractions of a few other individuals who are involved in stormwater inside public works and utilities. Our program areas include maintenance and repair, planning and prioritization, capital projects, and program funding. Our connection to the strategic plan, neighborhoods, of course, infrastructure, economy, safety, community well-being, and governance. And so let's look at the funds return to balance. Overall, we returned close to $8 million to the fund balance, similar to Peter's earlier comments. This does go to the fund balance and can be reappropriated at a later time. It doesn't necessarily evaporate. The lion's share here, you can see, was capital and debt service. This is because we're still under construction with the South Englewood Flood Reduction Project and also the Old Hamden Utilities Project. Both have stormwater in there, and both those projects will be wrapping up this year. Debt service also, the budgeted amount returned because we've not fully utilized that loan for South Englewood flood reduction, which will be done actually on our next pay app coming from the contractor. Our budget proposal for 2026, just a funding source overview. So we bring in approximately $3.7 million in user fees. We did have that $10 million enterprise bond back in 2021, which helped fund some of our projects. The $26 million in the water pollution control revolving fund. Again, those are funds used for the South Englewood flood reduction. We partner a lot with Mile High Flood District, 50-50 matching on projects. And then we are looking at a potential rate increase in 2025 based on a recent analysis with our finance department. So for 2026, here's an overview of our budget requests. So we're seeing approximately 15% increase in personnel and salary. That's due to staffing levels increasing and then some salary adjustments. Commodities up a little bit. Contractual services also up a little bit. That's utilizing contractors to help supplement staff and complete projects. Capital, you'll see, drop significantly. That is because we are wrapping up the South Englewood flood reduction and Old Hamden utilities projects this year. Overall, we're looking at a 12% decrease in request funding from the Stormwater Fund, totaling about $5.2 million, a hair under 5.3. From a capital perspective, in 2026, we're looking at $400,000 for repair of existing storm sewer, some matching dollars with Mile High Flood District, $357,000 for Dry Creek, Harvard Gulch, $600,000 for South Englewood, and then $250,000 for small area drainage improvements. These are localized issues that we've seen in the community and want to make sure we address, whether that's swapping grates, adding an inlet next to another inlet, expanding that capacity, or addressing pipe challenges based on aging infrastructure. and I apologize, I believe I misspoke in an earlier slide about rate increases. So 2026, we are looking and requesting a increase in the stormwater maintenance fee. Again, kind of similar to Peter's comment earlier, to avoid rate shock down the road. We're looking at a 4.5% increase. That's a little under $1 based on where we're at, and included in the bar charts you saw earlier. That would generate approximately $165,600 for the fund based on the 3.68 million revenue estimate. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Yes.
The work that's being done there on the South Huron Street, where they were moving the water in a better way, which I totally approved of. I noticed just last week on the neighborhood app that there's no covering for the water tunnel where that flows to. And there were a bunch of mothers saying, we can't even let our kids over there because the first thing they do is crawl into that cave. And I'm just wondering if somebody missed something, or if somebody took it off deliberately, criminal wise, and you guys hadn't caught that yet.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. So there is a safety grate that is being fabricated and has been in the plan for that, as well as at the other end over at the ponds. The contractor has installed a temporary safety measure to keep folks out, as well as a ball or whatever else may be in the area from the park. So thank you for the feedback. That has been addressed with the contractor.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Sounds like we're set on that front. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oops, wrong way.
Peter, anything more from staff side?
Yeah, actually, we do have one other imminent item that we would like to, since we have the meeting tonight, we'd like to talk to the board about. And I'm going to turn this over to Sarah, as she's got the information on it.
Okay, so we just wanted to give an update to the board because this is a big deal and will impact residents, that we are moving to South Broadway for lead line replacements starting tomorrow. So we're anticipating that construction would be starting June 11th and continue through July 3rd. That does give us a few buffer days. We aren't anticipating going much past the end of June, but we do have up to 60 service lines that need to be replaced on Broadway between 285 and Bellevue. That's about 15 blocks total. So because of where the water line is, it's on the west side of Broadway, that requires us to close the southbound Broadway. So the way the contractors plan to do that is they will do 2 block closures for 2 days. During the first day, they will pre-dig the holes for lead line replacement. And then the second day, they will do that actual service line replacement to those businesses. Northbound Broadway, we will leave 1 lane fully open at all times, and then close the parking lane in 1 northbound lane. The daily work hours are between 7 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. So you can see the first closure is between Kenyon and Mansfield. Bannock will be the detour route. We have driven that and tried to anticipate what that delay might be for commuters. We're expecting it to be around 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. In some of these more traveled intersections, getting back onto Broadway, there will be police traffic control available and moving traffic through that area. We have had significant public outreach efforts over the last couple weeks. Each of the businesses that are getting a service line replacement have had a pre-construction consultation with the contractor. That addresses their specific needs for their replacement. We have also had program staff go door to door for each of the businesses, whether or not they're getting a replacement, just to let them know of the traffic impacts during this time. We've posted electric electronic message boards, both northbound and southbound, over the last week, letting folks know that this construction is coming. We have updates on the city website, social media posts, and email notifications that have gone out in the last several days. We have also coordinated with RTD, as there are bus stops along each of these routes. Today, Peter actually gave an interview to Channel 9 asking for the impacts for these detours. And so that will air tomorrow morning. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So it'll be a great way to wake up tomorrow morning is you'll hear me talking about Broadway and lead service line.
Chair, do you mind if I ask a question?
Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you. So is this work only happening on weekdays?
Yes, only on weekdays.
And will the lanes be fully open on weekends?
Yes, the lanes will be fully open on weekends. There'll be a lane each way. It depends on where they finish on a Friday. So if they have cut holes for like replacements to happen on Monday, there may be lanes closed in either direction for that 2-block extent.
Okay. And I'm not sure if there's a good way to do this, but did we consult with businesses that see most of their businesses on specific days, whether it be weekends or excuse me, like Thursday, Fridays? Did we consult with them in terms of what would have less impact to their business in terms of doing that stretch of block?
So we did that as much as we could,
Okay.
Because we're trying to keep it to a 2-block and only going, only closing it down for the replacements. I failed to mention that we will also be doing permanent patches along Broadway here. We will not delay in getting those permanent patches done. So there'll be the two-day closures, and then the contractor will come back towards the end of this time frame to do those permanent patches. So again, we're doing the 2-block closures again for 1 day, just to get those patches complete. So as much as we can, we have talked to the businesses through that door-to-door conversation. We have overwhelmingly, businesses understand that we are going to be in the area. They understand the importance of this project, and they are supportive of the detours that we've set up.
I think the so there's no way around it. This is going to be disruptive to the community, and we recognize that. So we're trying to balance the getting in there and getting out as fast as possible in the most efficient way, so that we can stay on schedule for other projects that are scheduled for Broadway. And we found this to be the least disruptive, most efficient way to get through this, and have tried to talk to everybody that is involved, because we recognize that this is going to be an impact for the next couple weeks. And we anticipate that people are going to be frustrated and upset, which is why we've timed the detour. We will continue to monitor the timing of the detour. They're only 2 blocks at a time, and so it only, if a business is in an affected area, it should only be for the 2-day period, and then it moves. And so ultimately, businesses understand that this is a benefit for them, because a lot of them are getting their lead line replaced, and once we're done with this, we're out of Broadway, and so then we can move back into the neighborhoods. And we tried to balance that inconvenience and frustration with getting in and getting out as fast as possible.
May I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
I know that after someone has their lead line replaced, they have to use the Brita for, 30 days or something like that?
We recommend another 6 months.
Okay, so these businesses that are restaurants, for example, how are we handling that for them? Because the Brita is not going to work for serving water or cooking for 6 months.
So many times they have other filtration systems that they use. We offer them the pitcher, but that is, what we have available.
And I think that the thing to also keep in mind is that the Brita filter is that the lead, the removal of the lead is actually the removal of the potential hazard. And once the copper's in, the hazard should be gone. The Brita is an over, above and beyond. The state and EPA has said you should do this, but in reality, as we make these changes, the exposure drops to 0 if the lead is fully removed. And so we don't, it's one of those balances of, we removing the exposure through the lead line going away itself is the most important piece. The Brita is like an added, assurance, but in reality, by the lead line being gone, the exposure is gone. And so if we start to get some feedback from restaurants or something that there's more concern around that, we can work with them directly. But really, this is following the CDPHE EPA guidance in terms of, it's almost like a belt and suspenders approach to ensuring that, there's absolutely no potential exposure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to board members' choice, item 8. Does anyone have an issue they want to raise tonight? Any board member? All right, hearing none. Then we will, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks,
Thank
Chair.
you.